We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Tesam and Beis and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 19b. On the previous summer, Rav Chisda said to his students that I'm afraid to tell you the following, but anybody who learns from only one Rebbe, Eino Roa Siman Bracha Liolam, he's not going to see a Siman Bracha forever. And so the students left and they went over to Rabbah, and Rabbah said that's only true in terms of learning reasoning, but in terms of learning the traditions, in terms of learning the actual teaching, so there it's actually better to learn just from one Rebbe. And the reason for that is Delo Liflog Lishni, because you don't want that you should get different versions of the same basic teaching. Rashi explains Delo Liflog Lishni Shelo Yischalko Halashonos. You're going to get different languages, different versions of the exact same teaching. The High Garis Shmaita, V'Hai Lishna, V'Hai Garis Love, V'Lishna Achrina. One Rebbe is going to teach it in one way, and the other Rebbe is going to teach it in a different way. V'Chada Milsi, really it's all the same idea. Umiyu Talmud de Garis Mitarvayu, and what's going to happen is when a student learns from both of them, Mishtavish Begirse Mishum de Meval V'Lishna, he's actually just going to get all confused because of the fact that there are different versions. So in terms of learning just the actual teachings themselves, it's better to learn from one Rebbe. And the Gemara continues darshaning the psukim in Tehillim. The pasuk says al palge mayim, on streams of water, and the Gemara darshans the language of palge is to divide. So the Gemara darshans as follows: Amar Rav Tanchem bar Chaniloi, Rav Tanchem bar Chaniloi says liolam yeshalish adam shenosav, a person should divide the years of his life by 3. Shlish b'mikra, 1/3 of his life he should learn psukim. Shlish b'mishnah, 1/3 of his life he should learn mishnah, and shlish b'talmud, 1/3 of his life he should learn Talmud. He should learn Gemara. The Gemara continues and asks, Mi yoda inish kamachai, but does a person know how long he's going to live? How is he supposed to divide up his years by 3? And the Gemara continues and answers, Kiku aminan biyome. What we're talking about is you're supposed to divide up the days of the week. Rashi explains, biyome, beis yam and mikra, 2 days of the week you learn mikra, ubeis yam and mishnah, 2 days you learn mishnah, etc. V'chein kol shavua v'shavua, that's what you're going to do every single week. You'll divide up again 2 days for each, and that's not counting Shabbos in terms of that division. So you're going to divide up the 6 days of the week, 2, 2, and 2. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk in Tehillim says, Asher piryo yiten bi'ito, it gives its fruit in its time. Amar Rava says, Im piryo yiten bi'ito, if the fruit is given in its time, then v'yoleu lo yibol, then the leaves are not going to wither. Rashi explains, Imperio Yiten Beito Sheyikva Itim LaTorah. What it means to say is, if the person sets a time to learn Torah, so then it's not going to wither away. Vim Lavin, if not, Al Halomed Val Hamalamed, about both the student and the teacher. Aleim HaKosav Omer, about them, the pasuk then says, Lochein Horeshoim Ki'im, and that also is from Tehillim. And Rashi here explains Rishoim, Trei Mashma, Lomed Umalamdo. The word Rishoim is plural, so it sounds like both the student and the teacher, and that's how the Gemara is understanding that it refers to both the student and the teacher. Rashi has another explanation, Lishna Achrina Pirio Yiten Beito Shalomed Va'osa Pri. What it means is the person is not just learning, but also fulfilling the mitzvahs, doing what he learned. Kilomer Mekayim Ashakos B'Torah, he fulfills what's written in the Torah. V'zeh Ikar, Rashi says this is the better explanation. In any case, again, if the person is going to do it properly, he's going to, let's say, fulfill the mitzvahs, then violeu lo yibol, then the leaves are not going to wither. Otherwise, as the pasuk goes on to say, lochein horeshoim, that's not what happens with the wicked. Kiyim kamotz asher tidvenu ruach, it's like the chaff that's blown by the wind. Again, that's what's going to happen if it's not piryo yiten bi'ito. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Rabbi Abba says that Rav Huna says that Rav says, Mai dechsiv, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk in Sefer Mishalei? Ki ravim chalolim hipila, it says that she has cast down many wounded. The simple explanation of the pasuk is it's talking about a zona, about a prostitute. But the Gemara interprets the pasuk to mean that Talmud shelo higia lahora umora. It's talking about a student who really hasn't reached the maturity to be able to issue rulings, and he's issuing those rulings. And the pasuk goes on to say, Vatsumim kol harugan, all of the mighty ones again are the ones that she has slain. Zet Talmud shehigia lahora, that refers to a student who has reached the maturity to issue rulings. Ve'eno mor, and he doesn't issue those rulings. V'ad kam, and how long does it take to be able to reach that level of maturity to issue hora, to issue rulings? Ad mem shenin, it's 40 years. The Gemara continues, Rava ori, but what about Rava? Didn't he issue rulings and he did not even live to be that long? And the Mesoras Hashas notes over here, Besota Sham Isa Rabba V'ayin Sham Barashi. In Sota, it says instead of Rava, it says Rabba, and says look over there in Rashi. In any case, the point over here is that, as Rashi over here says, Rava Ori V'chol Yomav Lo Hayu Ela Arboim Shana. Rava only lived for 40 years, and yet he was able to issue rulings. So how is that possible? Doesn't the person have to be 40? And the Gemara answers to that, Hasam over there, Bishavin, we're talking about where everyone was equal. And Rashi explains, Hasam Bishavin B'She'ein Be'iro Gadol Mimenu. The point is there was no one in his city greater than him. That's why he was able to issue those rulings. And the Gemara continues, V'yoleu lo yibol, it says again, the leaves will not wither. Amar Rav Acha bar Ada, Amar Rav Acha bar Ada says that Rav says, V'amri lo, and some have the version as follows, Amar Rav Acha bar Abba, Amar Rav Hamnuna, Amar Rav Acha bar Abba says that Rav Hamnuna says that Rav says, Sha'afilu sichas chulin shel talmidei chachamim, what it means is, even the mere conversation of talmidei chachamim, tzricha Talmud, you need to be able to learn, or you can learn something from that. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, V'yoleu lo yibol, it says that the leaves will not wither. The idea over here is that the leaves are very light. It means even the mere conversation. And Rashi here explains, Sichas chulin shel chachamim, tzricha Talmud, kedei lehislamed, ledaber bilashonam shu belashon nikiya, v'osher umarpe. The point over here, according to Rashi, is that the person, you should learn how to speak, because they speak in a clean language. V'yoleu, the leaves have a davar kal shabil, and that's the lightest thing on a tree. Uchsiv lo yibol, when it says it's not going to wither, kolomar lo yelech leibud, it means to say it's not going to be destroyed, it's not going to be for nothing, meaning the point is that you can learn something from that. And the Gemara continues, V'chol asher yasa yatzliach, everything that he does, he'll be successful. Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, Davar zeh kasav b'Torah, this idea is written in the Torah, V'shani b'Neviim, it's repeated in the Neviim, U'meshulash b'Ksuvim, and it's said for a third time in the Ksuvim, the following idea. Kol ha'osek b'Torah, anybody who works in Torah, nechasav matzlichin lo, his property is successful for him. Kasav b'Torah, it's written in the Torah, Dechsiv, because it's written, U'shmartem es divrei habris hazos, V'asisam osam leman taskilu, and the idea being that you'll keep the covenant and you'll be successful. Shonai ben Neviim, it's repeated in the Neviim, Dechsiv, as it's written, Lo yamush sefer haTorah hazem mipicha, v'hagisu bo yomam v'loyla leman tishmor lasos kechol hakosav bo ki oz tatzliach es derachecha v'oz taskil, again, then you will be successful. And Meshulash b'Ksuvim, a third time in the Ksuvim, Dechsiv, as it's written, Kim b'Torah Hashem chefzo v'tzoraso yege yomam v'loyla v'hayaketz shasel al palge mayim asher pirio yitein be'ito v'yoleu lo yivol v'chol asher yasa yatzliach. Again, that's the pasuk that we quoted above. The idea being, again, if it's b'Torah Hashem chefzo, then the person is going to be successful. And the Gemara continues, Machers Rabbi Alexandri, he announced, Man boy chai, who wants life, who wants life? Kanaf v'yasu kol yalma lagabe, everybody gathered around him. Amri lei, they said to him, Havlon chai, give us life. Amar lahu, he said to them, Mi ho'isha chavetz chaim, who wants life? Nitzur l'shon chameira, you should protect your tongue, you shouldn't speak evil. And the Gemara continues, Shema Yomar Adam. Now maybe a person will say, Natsarti l'shoni meros, Fasem midaber mirma, I haven't spoken the evil. Eilech v'ezgar b'sheino, all I'll do is I'll sleep. I just won't do anything. That way I won't speak evil. I won't do anything bad. Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, Sur meirav asei tov. It says, turn away from evil and do good. Ein tov el Torah. The word tov refers to Torah. The person needs to learn Torah. Shenemar, as it says, Ki lekach tov nasati lochem torasi al tazovu. When referring to the Torah, it uses the word tov. And we will look back at two Rashis. Hipila lashon nefel. The word hipila is the language of a nefel, like a stillborn. Shalom malu yamav, meaning that its days have not been completed. Kilomar Talmud shalom malu yamav rabim chalalav, means to say it's referring again to a student who hasn't reached the proper level of maturity and he's issuing the rulings too early. And then the pasuk says v'atzumim, and the way we interpret that is hamisatzmim v'hamachrishim u'misapkim milahoros. They're like holding back. They're being silent from issuing the rulings. Horgan as doran, they end up killing their generation. As Rashi notes, v'atzumim lashon va'otzim einav. The word v'atzumim we're interpreting here as otzim einav is like closing the person's eyes, meaning again holding back from issuing those rulings. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Higia l'kipa mokam shema'amidin bo avodas kochavim. Let's say the Jew is helping in the construction of the bathhouse. So once they reach the area of the dome where they would put the Avodah Zara, again Rashi said it was the Avodah Zara Aphrodite. So at that point, the Jew should stop helping in the construction. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Elazar says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Im bona. Let's say he does build that part. Secharo mutter. He's able to get hana. He's able to still take his wages. The Gemara says, Pshita. Well, isn't that obvious? Meshamshe avodas kochavim hein. That's just something that serves the Avodah Zara. It's not the Avodah Zara itself. Umeshamshe avodas kochavim, and when it's something that serves the Avodah Zara, bein Rabbi Yishmael, bein Rabbi Akiva, whether we're following Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Akiva, we'll see Rashi in a moment. Ein an asurin ad sheyevdu. They don't become usur. It's not prohibited until it's actually served, and so therefore over here, that's why of course it would be mutter. And the Gemara continues and answers. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Lo nitzrucha ela lavodas kochavim atzma. Where actually what's needed to be taught over here here is the Avoda Zara itself, meaning taking wages for the construction of the Avoda Zara itself. The Gemara says, now this works according to the one who says that the Avoda Zara of a Jew is asur immediately, but the Avoda Zara of an idol worshiper is only going to become prohibited when it's actually worshipped. So then Shaper, that makes sense. That's why he can take money even for the construction of the Avodah Zara itself. But according to the one who says the Avodah Zara it's asur immediately, so then what are you going to say? The Rabbi Barula says, we're talking here about the makosh achron, that last strike, meaning the last strike of the hammer, the finishing touch that you put on the Avodah Zara. Avodas kochavim man kagorim lo, what causes it to be an Avodah Zara? Gemar melach, it's the completion of the work. V'yemas have a gemar melach, and when is the completion of the work? B'makosh achron, that's with the last strike of the hammer. Makosh achron less but beishav a pruta, and that last strike of the hammer, that's not even worth a pruta, and that's why he's able to collect his wages. And the Gemara comments, Alma Kasavra, we see that he holds, meaning Rabbi Lazar Amar Rabbi Yochanan, we see that he holds, Yeshna l'schiras mitchila v'yad sof, that the person is entitled to his wages from the beginning of the work until the end, and therefore he's accumulating those wages as he is working, and he's entitled to those wages. And Rashi explains, Pshita, isn't it obvious to scharo mutter that the wages are mutter again for the Yisrael to take the wages when he's helping to construct this dome? To hakipa zu lav avodas kochavim, because this dome is not itself Avodah Zara. Elatashmish lavodas kochavim, it just serves the Avodah Zara. That's why the wages should be mutter. Because bein Rabbi Yishmael uvein Rabbi Kiva, whether we're following Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Kiva, de pligi ba'avodas kochavim atzma meimasai neseres, they argue by Avodah Zara itself. From what point in a time is it usher? But betash but by Tashmisha Avodah Zara, things serving the Avodah Zara, they admit that there is no Isser ad sheyavdu, until they're actually served. In this case, it means ad sheyishtamshu bahen la'avodas kochavim, until you're actually going to use them for the Avodah Zara. And so then the Gemara said, Lo nitzrucha had Rabbi Lazar, that which Rabbi Lazar taught again, Rabbi Lazar from Rabbi Yochanan, that the schar is mutter, that teaching was not really needed by Tashmisha Avodah Zara. That teaching was needed ela la'avodas kochavim atzma, it was needed actually for the Avodah Zara itself. Also, Yisrael Ovid Kochavim Avodas Kochavim Bischar. Let's say a Jew is going to make for an Ovid Kochavim an idol, and he's going to do that for wages. Scharo mutter. The wages are going to be mutter. That's what Rabbi Lazar was saying. The Gemara continued and said, Hanichol Adomer. Now that works out according to the one who says this was a plug to Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva. This is a machlokas between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva in terms of the Avodah Zara itself. At what point in time is it aser? So Shel Yisrael, Sha'aser Yisrael at Sarcho. When we say it's Shel Yisrael, again we said that it's going to work out according to the one who says that if it is Shel Yisrael, Lamanda Amar, that Avodas Kochavim Shel Yisrael Asura Miyad, V'Shelovid Kochavim Ad Shetiyavid, we said Shapir. So again, Shel Yisrael means Sha'asi Yisrael Etzarcho, that if the Jew made it for himself, L'mochra La'ovid Kochavim, to sell it to an Ovid Kochavim, we're going to say, let's say, according to the one who says that it's Asur Miyad in that case, V'Shelovid Kochavim Misheteyavid, but the one that's made by the Ovid Kochavim is only from when it's served, V'Zu Adayin Lav Nevda, and you're going to say that in this case, when the Jew is constructing the Avodah Zara, it wasn't yet served, so that would all make sense. Mishamachi scharo mutter. Then it makes sense to say that the wages are mutter. Shezulet sorech ovid kochavim nasis, because this was made for an ovid kochavim. It wasn't made for a Jew. It was made for an ovid kochavim. That would work out according to that mandamer, that if it's made for an ovid kochavim, it has to actually be worshipped to be asur. But according to the one who says that shel ovid kochavim is asura miyad, so how is it that he's able to take the wages? And so the Gemara continued and answered, Man kagorim lol hikaros avodas kochavim, even according to the one who says it's asur miyad, but what makes it an Avodah Zara that at that point in time it's asur? That's b'makosh achron, that's that last strike of the hammer. Makas kornas achron, when he strikes it the last time with the hammer. But at that moment, less bei shava pruta, that's not a pruta. Hilkach shari, that's why it's permitted to take the wages. Dischirus shar makushos lo mitzvah, because the wages for the other strikes of the hammer, that's not going to be asur. Tahulav schar avodas kochavim, because at that point it wasn't yet an Avodah Zara, so it's not called schar Avodah Zara. That's why he's able to be paid. Meaning, even according to the one who says that the Avodah Zara is asur immediately, but it's only immediately upon completion. But all the while he's striking with the hammer, it's not yet an Avodah Zara until that last moment. At that last moment, it's not even worth a pruta. And Rashi continues and explains what the Gemara noted. V'kasav Rabbi Lazar holds that wages are accumulated throughout the work. So therefore, meaning uman hamakabel olav lasos b'schar, if an uman if a craftsman says he's going to do a job for a certain amount of wages, lo amrina b'gmar hamalachu kona kol askris. We don't say that when he finishes, that's when he's entitled to all of the wages. Ela kol porso da'avid kamo kani agra. But every little bit of work he does, he's getting a little bit of the wages. The plug seibe kiddushin, that's a machlokas over there in kiddushin, and so the idea over here is, since Rebbe Elazar says that, that's why he's entitled to those wages. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ve'ein osin tachshitin la'avodas kochavim. You can't make adornments for Avoda Zara, katzlos, or nezamim v'tabos. You can't make necklaces, or nose rings, or rings. Rabbi Eliezer says, bischar mutter. If the person makes these for payments, so then it's going to be mutter. And the Mishnah continues, Ein mochrin lahem b'mechuber lakarka. You can't sell to the ovdei kochavim that which is attached to the ground. Avol mochru mishayikatzitz. But you could sell it to him once it is severed from the ground, once it's detached from the ground. Rabbi Yehuda says, mochru al manas lokatz. You can also sell something that's mechuber lakarka if it's on the condition that it's going to be severed from the ground. And the Gemara says, Minohani Mili, from where do we know this? Some Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chaf Amud Aleph.